Welcome once again. It's the Close the Deal show with Terrence McCrae. Glad to see you all. Today, we're going to talk about a different particular topic. And this particular topic that we're going to talk about, unlike previous topics that this show has talked about, is something that struck me. And the reason why it struck me is because I never knew that the issue that anybody could be a victim. So, my question to my viewers are, what are the odds of being the victim of a violent crime? However, statistics show from a New York Times published a while ago, March 9th, 1987, 83% of 12-year-old children in the United States will be victims of a violent crime, at least once in a lifetime. So, what I want to talk about in particular is employers, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and corporate companies, right, need to be aware that most crimes is not reported to law enforcement. Approximately 50% of violent crimes is reported. So today, I have a guest with me that is no stranger to this topic. Allow me to introduce you to Ed Kressy. Someone who can train your corporate companies, small business owners, entrepreneurs, and you with how to provide safety for yourself. Because what is important is you not becoming a victim of a crime. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Ed Kressy.
Hello. Hi, Terrence. Thanks for having me today.
Definitely, it's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. You're an inspirational individual, Terrence. The obstacles you've overcome in your life, a lot of people would choose to be bitter. A lot of people would choose to be resentful. But look what you're doing. You have chosen a path where you're helping your viewers. You're choosing to do public service work, improve your community and your society. So it's individuals such as yourself that really give me the inspiration. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. Could you tell the viewers a little bit about your background?
Sure. I had pretty much everything a person could want going back to my childhood. I was very well provided for, college education. I went on to become a homeowner. I had a career at this big biotech company. They treated me very well. But I was a drug addict. I was a drug addict the whole time. And eventually, my addiction took me to a place where all those things I mentioned, the career, the home, a lot of loving relationships, all of that and much more, I threw that all away. Ended up living a life of methamphetamine psychosis. I was a meth addict, so I would hear these voices and I would believe in these conspiracies of the government being out to get me. I did a couple of months in jail, spent a night or two in homeless shelters, years in destitution before I finally got a lot of help and was able to bring myself out of all that. What we're getting around to is that one thing that really helped me find my way back into society was self-defense training. Something I could commit myself to, a way I could give back to society. Whereas before I was just sort of taking. What could I get? What could I take from society? Through self-defense training, through inspiration from yourself and many individuals like you, from getting a lot of help, I was able to take self-defense, something I had a passion for, something that was very meaningful to me. I could turn that into a way to serve my community and ultimately run a small business.
So my question to you, Ed, is why should self-defense be an option?
Self-defense is interesting, and we could go a couple of different ways in this conversation. The interesting thing to me is that self-defense deals with an existential fear. We're talking about a fear of being alive from one day to the next. Something about dealing with existential fears really helps us improve all areas of our life. At least that's what I've found. A comparison that I like to make is to public speaking. Many of us, myself included, were afraid of speaking in public. And what the experts will say is that ties back to our fear of being kicked out of a group. Because back in our prehistoric days as human beings, if we were not members of a group, we as individuals stood very little chance of survival, right?
Oh, I
So-
understand that.
Yeah.
That's a very clear point.
Uh-huh,
But I have a lot of viewers that are small business owners and entrepreneurs.
right.
How could your technique of teaching someone self-defense help a small business?
What a small business or any business could benefit from is the transferable skills, that existential fear that I was talking about. Learning how the way we overcome those types of fears is by things like practicing mindfulness, practicing awareness, practicing ways to overcome obstacles, ways to avoid danger. All of those things are very high level self-defense practices. They're also highly transferable to your business. In your business, in order to succeed, you're going to have to learn to overcome obstacles. You're going to have to learn to be or increase your mindfulness. So you're more mindful of how you're serving your customers. Are you delighting your customers? Because the best businesses, they delight their customers. That's what I've learned. Are you mindful of your business practices? Are you mindful of your financials? Are you mindful of your scaling and your growth? When you practice things like mindfulness and awareness, which are key components of self-defense, I've found and my clients have found that these things are transferable to successful business management.
Okay, that is very valid. That is a very valid point. Now, imagine if you were a small business owner that owned a cafe,
Yeah.
and you got a homeless guy who's causing a disruption. How would your self-defense tactics prevent one of the customers from getting hurt as well as yourself?
Top level self-defense is always about avoiding danger. So in this particular situation, the authorities, these are men and women who are experts at handling persons who may be dangerous. Always contact the authorities. Always avoid danger if you can. The top level of self-defense, as I learned it, is avoiding. If we can't avoid, we run. If we can't run, we de-escalate. If we can't de-escalate, we fight. So look how far down fighting is on our timeline. Most people, at least if you're like me, you think about self-defense as taking it to the fists and using the boots and the elbows and whatnot. That's part of self-defense, but it's very far down. We should never get to the point where we need to use the fists and use the boots. Our self-defense should be about avoiding that trouble.
So we're talking about pre-contemplation?
That's a good way to put it. I've not heard that term, but I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. So are you currently teaching self-defense courses right now?
I'm doing some work for select clients. I worked for companies. I was hired by Cisco, LinkedIn, Google, Slack, Decker Communications, which is a fine global communications company. I had some very good clients. To be quite honest, those clients, they knew I delivered a good service. They benefited a lot from my courses, but they deserve the most credit for their support of Defy Ventures, which, can I go into Defy Ventures?
Yes, you can.
Oh, thank you. The Defy Ventures is an incubator. It's an entrepreneur training organization that supports only people with criminal histories, such as myself. Defy Ventures trains currently and formerly incarcerated men and women to become entrepreneurs, to become employees. Defy Ventures trains character development. It's because I was a part of Defy Ventures and because I provided good self-defense training that companies such as Cisco, Google, LinkedIn, and the others hired me. So those companies, they get a lot of credit. They support Defy Ventures. They are in business not only to make a profit, but they are also in business to make society better for all of us. It's a wonderful thing to see that.
So for the viewers to know,
Yeah.
okay, through this program that you're in,
Yeah.
right, if a small business owner wanted to learn some of your techniques, what were techniques that you taught Google that the small business owner possibly, or entrepreneur or private security who don't have the same techniques as you, how could they benefit from learning your techniques?
They would benefit by focusing on awareness. What are one's surroundings? who and what is around you, knowing these things at all times, knowing where your exits are. They would benefit by really learning what are the timelines of self-defense and increasing their odds to remain safe. Like we were saying, you never want to take it to the level of fighting if you can possibly help it. Fighting should be your last resort before succumbing, before falling prey to a predatory attack. The way that the companies and individuals would most benefit is by taking this to heart. Being aware, being mindful, that's something almost all of us can do. Knowing who and what's around us, this is something almost everyone is capable of starting right now. Becoming a professional fighter, becoming an expert with the hands, with the whatnot, that takes a long time. It takes hours and hours and days and weeks and months and lifetimes of training. It's valuable, it's very worthwhile, but it's not necessarily going to help us the best way today, right now, when we think about keeping ourselves safe out there on the streets, in our homes, wherever we may be. Is that going to help your viewers, I hope?
Well, it's a possibility. The thing is we have young viewers as well.
Yeah.
And when you mention passionate, one of the key things that you said was to not always use violence as the last choice.
Yeah.
Avoid it.
Yeah.
As much as possible. Mm-hmm. So my question to you, Ed, and it's a very important question, is what would you explain to a young entrepreneur who has the same type of passion as you in self-defense? How would you explain to him the path that you've taken?
The best advice I ever got was from a gentleman named Tim Draper, who's one of my instructors at Defy Ventures, very well-known venture capitalist, started his own university here in the Bay Area called Draper University. His advice was to delight your customers, like we were saying a couple of minutes ago. The best of the best entrepreneurs, Tim Draper will tell you, know how to delight their customers. And when we take that attitude, when we give our customers 100% guarantee, you're delighted by my services, otherwise you don't pay. When we take that type of attitude, when we understand that failure is a key component of any business, at least any business I've ever heard of, when we learn how to deal with failure, how to fall down but keep getting up, fall down, keep getting up, when we understand these things, I always thought entrepreneurship was about learning spreadsheets and understanding cash flow reports and P&L, profit and loss reports, and these very complicated things that would be quite difficult for me to understand. That's what I thought entrepreneurism is about. When I got to become a part of Defy Ventures, I realized that entrepreneurism is more about things like delighting your customers and having a passion for projecting oneself onto the business. I am my business, and my business is a reflection of me as a human being. These are simple but very powerful ways of thinking about businesses that Defy Ventures taught me. And even someone like me who has very little, I've worked for big companies, but as far as running my own company, I had zero experience. I thought an entrepreneur was someone who almost got hit by lightning. You get struck by entrepreneurism. All of a sudden you're walking down the street, you have an idea, boom, you're struck and you're an entrepreneur. Through Defy Ventures and many others, I learned that entrepreneurism is almost a profession. It's like becoming a lawyer or a doctor or any number of professionals. So you've done it, I've done it. People such as me who learn the steps to becoming a successful entrepreneur, who learn the simple yet very powerful strategies. These people can be successful. That's the advice I would give to any of your viewers.
Okay. So, if someone wanted to contact you, Ed, and said, something, I need a bodyguard, I need private security, how could they reach out and contact you with the reference list that you have?
I'm happy to help anyone who's in need of, who's looking for any type of services. I would just shoot me an email. I'm happy to provide my email address. You can text me on the phone.
What's your email address, Ed?
Ed, ed.kressy@icloud.com.
Well, Ed, I'm so happy and delightful for you showing up and sharing not only with the Close the Deal show viewers, but with myself, new ways of understanding how to prevent violence, and that is mainly what you share, being mindful and aware of your surroundings. Thank you for coming on the show.
Terrence, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has been a pleasure. And yes, it has been very mindful for us to be aware that, no one wants to be a victim of a crime, whether it's a violent one or whether it's in a household. But what we want to be mindful of and very aware of is that violence is not always the solution in resolving a conflict. What you need to be able to understand from what Ed was talking about in business is to be very delightful with your customers in order for them to continue to come back. Just like I want you to come back and watch me again on Monday nights on Channel 29. This is the Close the Deal Show. Take care and have a good one.